Welcome back to Around the House. Today we will be winterizing our underground sprinkler system. First thing we need to do is shut off the main valve that is in between the main water supply of the house and it tees off into the sprinkler system circuits. So I've got to reach my arm down there, and it's nearly 3 feet down. Hopefully I can do this without getting too dirty. There we go. That's just a gate valve, and it has now been turned off. And now we can put the cap back on this until, actually what we're going to do, before I do that, I do take some insulation and shove it down here. This is low enough that it probably doesn't need it, but it is helpful to have it. So I will come back and put some insulation in here just to keep the cold air from getting down to that valve. Okay, so we are just about 3 feet from that valve, which is on the other side of this fence. And this is the backflow preventer. This is required in my town to ensure that any water that goes through into the sprinkler system doesn't come back and contaminate the city municipal supply. So I decommissioned this for the winter, but first what I do is I shut off both valves, one in front and one in back, so it isolates it. This valve of course goes to my sprinkler valves, which is in a box right next to it. What I do is actually take off these backflow preventer valves, double valve, and then I store the springs and the O-rings and the plungers in a plastic bag. I put some basically some rubber grease on there to keep them clean and protected. And then I put them back in the spring. So we'll get back to this in a second when I pull these off, and I'll show you what they look like. All right, so I just loosen these up with a crescent wrench a little bit, and then I can do them by hand. Again, these are the double check valves, and behind this is a valve that lets the water through but doesn't let it go back. And I have to be a little careful as I pull these off. I don't lose the springs. They are in tension. It's not very complicated, but we have a spring and a cap, and then down in here is the valve, and this is the rubber valve. You can replace these seats, but this is goes in here like this. Water pressure pushes that up, but then as water stops, it closes back up the valve, prevents stuff from going back in the line. These are the things that you can replace, but I keep these nice and greased. Also, there are O-rings at the top of these that seal that off. I pull these out. These are nicely greased still from when I put them back last year. So I'll grease these up, put them in a dry bag, plastic Ziploc bag, and store them until springtime. And then I make sure all the water is blown out of these. So I'm going to pull this one off because it's just the same as doing it for here. And then when I get some compressed air, I will try to blow all that out. I'll probably actually open up this valve again, push air back that way, and blow all this out. All right, so here we have all those bits in a bag. I got the O-rings, and I grease them up with this stuff here. It's a lubricating compound for O-ring assembly. And I put a little bit on there and also on the rubber pieces here, and just kind of wipe these down with a terry cloth. This will go inside in a protected area, keep it from freezing until next spring when I put this back together. So our next step is back here on the actual control valve section. And this looks like your typical control valve with a bunch of spiders. Happy Halloween. What we have here is a port that I put in when I installed the sprinklers, and I will take this 1/2-inch cap off, and you can see it goes down to the main line, but I put a Schrader valve on another cap, and this allows me to take this cap off and put that on there, and then I can put a air compressor just to the Schrader valve, and then open up these valves one by one and blow all the water out. Now it doesn't get all the water out perfectly, but it gets enough to ensure that there's not water in these valves to, perhaps freeze, or in the lines. So when water freezes, it expands, and that's what causes cracks. So I've already been through one season doing it this way, and it worked fine. And of course I will put some insulation over these as well, just to make sure that reduce the risk. So I'm going to take this 1/2-inch cap off, put this one on, and then we'll show you how we blow it out with the air compressor. Took the other cap off, and I just leave these in here. I'm not going anywhere, they don't have legs. And screw this one on. And to make one of these Schrader valves, just get a regular Schrader valve, and I can't remember what size of drill bit I used on the top of the cap. Could have been 1/4, maybe it's 3/8, I'm not sure. Just kind of estimated what it looks like. You put the Schrader in there and put the cap on with some pliers. You just pull it through. I think I had to sand the top of this to make sure it was smooth. Sometimes they have casting ridges. Anyway, I get her tightened down. Now I turn on my air compressor, and then what I do with these should be loose enough to do by hand, but they might not be. These I will turn one at a time. This is my drip system, so it's a low pressure system. Don't have to do too much here because water inherently just comes out. I'll do this one, and then each one of these valves I apply air to this and carefully open this, and then I'll have my cameraman go out to the areas where it's blowing out, so you can see how the air blows out the water. And before we blow out any of the valves and the circuits, or the line circuits, I guess is electrical, but the water lines, I'm going to back push air through here. So I'm going to open this up so that when I add air to over here, it should push out water. Okay, let's get the camera here so you can see. Good. We'll work on that a little bit more. I'll probably just use a rag and draw the water out. But let me close this back up and go back to our sprinkler valves. Okay, so just so you know, this is the air compressor I have using. This pancake compressor, maximum 135 psi. It produces 7.7 SCFM. That is, oh my goodness, something cubic feet per minute at certain psi levels. And it's good enough for what I do. You know, commercial operators, they have the super tow behind, the gas ones, but again, this works for my system. You may need something stronger depending on how many sprinkler heads or how your system is set up. But this works for me, and it's just a typical residential lot. Everything blown out, and I took that Schrader valve off, and I just keep it down here till next time. And then I actually pulled out the standpipe a little bit, and the pipe threads came out. Put new goop on there. Now I'm just tightening everything down. And again, I just have some old bat insulation, fiberglass bats, and I put it down the valve holes in here, and then I will get a little bit more water out of the backflow preventer, button everything up, and good until springtime when I put the valves back in. backflow preventer and test the system out when I know it's not going to freeze again. Until next time, see you around the house. All right, here I am just putting a little bad insulation. I have this saved in my attic, and I'll do the same for the other boxes after I get the water out of these valves. Pretty. All right, getting the insulation in this one, and the last one. Don't follow me. Up. Put it in there like that. Flip the gravel back. Beautiful.